Hi guys, this video is all about breathing exercises to help control anxiety. I'm going to be giving you my views on their value, the benefits, the pitfalls, and explaining exactly why when I work with people to help relieve anxiety, I don't teach them how to breathe. I'm Tim Box and this is Breathing Exercises, why they don't help and why sometimes they actually do. So welcome back to my channel, or if this is your first time, I'm Tim Box, I'm a mind coach, and for more than a decade now I've been working with people to help them overcome all sorts of emotional and psychological issues, and in particular helping people to get control of anxiety. Now, there are a couple of reasons for making this video. The first is that it was requested by a couple of you guys who subscribe to my channel, and as you know, I always do my best to make the content that will help you. The second reason is a bit more of a story. As some of you may know, I regularly train practitioners in my method of change work. I've been doing this for the last 6 years or so. And whilst I sometimes train people with no previous therapeutic background, I'll often train people who are already professional therapists or coaches and are simply looking to add my method to their toolkit. Recently, I trained someone who was already doing some awesome work for people to help overcome anxiety issues using breath work and breathing techniques. I've had some really interesting conversations with her in the last few weeks that basically involved her telling me why she used that method and me telling her why I didn't. However, as a result of those conversations, I kind of feel like my position has shifted slightly and I've been able to see things from a slightly different perspective. So what better time to share my thoughts on breathing techniques with you guys? So let's start by making some sort of case for learning breathing techniques. When we feel high levels of anxiety, an incredibly common symptom is that we start to struggle for breath. I've heard it referred to as air hunger, and this inability to breathe can be the thing we fear the most when it comes to any potential panic response. I've also read things about the regular shallow breathing that comes from perpetually being too stressed and anxious can be a cause of certain symptoms of dissociation. So the natural impact high anxiety has on our breathing can potentially be the source of a great deal of extra anxiety. The aim of breathing techniques is to help calm you physically, mitigate the fight or flight response, and thus calming your mind and your nervous system in the process. Focusing on the breathing can help us feel more calm and grounded and help return us to the here and now rather than being engaged in those future concerns. If we learn to breathe more deeply, we slow the heart rate, calm the body. This in turn effectively exerts positive influence on our nervous system and thus helps us get back in control of the way we feel. So having said all of that, it then sounds weird to suggest that applying breathing techniques could be anything other than positive, but let me explain why I deliberately steer clear of them. So there are a couple of main reasons why if you come to see me, you won't get taught any breathing exercises. The first is that when we take steps to manage our breathing, we're effectively treating the symptoms of the problem rather than the problem itself. We don't experience physical distress for no reason, so why simply treat the effect without addressing the cause? The fact is, we struggle to breathe because something about our situation feels threatening. Shallow or panic breathing is our body's reaction to threat. It's the stress response kicking in. It's fight or flight getting us ready to take action. So when people ask me for help managing their symptoms, I always encourage them to think more about updating whatever beliefs are causing those symptoms. If we change whatever it is about our understanding of the situation that makes us feel under threat, then we end up with no nasty symptoms to manage. Secondly, if we seek to arm ourselves with tools to manage our response, all we're doing is suggesting there's something to fear from that response. In seeking to feel more comfortable, we simply treat the discomfort as if it is in some way threatening. As soon as we start to get anxious about the prospect of anxiety striking, we induce and exacerbate that response. The work I do with clients is all based around the idea that anxiety is nothing to fear. As soon as we stop fearing anxiety, we stop amplifying it and get back in control of our own emotional responses. So this is why I don't then teach breathing exercises, because it would be incongruent with the message I use to help people recover. It's like saying, that guy over there is perfectly safe, but here's a gun just in case he attacks you. It instantly suggests there's something to worry about, thus causing us to worry. For a long time, that was kind of where I stood on breathing techniques. It's fine to learn techniques to calm the monster if you're prepared to accept that doing so means there will always be a monster that needs to be calmed. But something about the conversation I had with my practitioner recently kind of changed my mind on that. So there I was, making my case against the employment of breathing techniques to combat anxiety, and the practitioner I was talking to told me a really interesting story about her journey out the other side of high anxiety. She explained how learning breathing exercises that were effective at calming her anxiety symptoms had enabled her to feel that even in those times of high anxiety, it would never result in a complete loss of control. Now she knew how to control her breathing, even in those highly stressful and potentially anxious times. She no longer felt quite so vulnerable. She had effectively taught herself that there was nothing to fear from feeling anxious. Not because of any work she'd done to reframe what anxiety meant to her in her mind, but she'd effectively given herself more faith in her ability to cope with it. Her control over any physical symptoms had enabled her to feel more secure in her day-to-day life, and as a result, she then experienced far fewer periods of high anxiety. Eventually, of course, once she started to feel less concerned about anxiety, her anxiety levels returned to what she regarded as normal and no longer troubled her. So she'd achieved that goal of no longer fearing anxiety, albeit in a slightly different way. As I've said in many other videos, the end game of our journey the other side of high anxiety is to get to the point where we no longer fear it. Once there's no more fear, there's no more high anxiety. How we get to that point is going to be slightly different for everyone. It's very probably going to involve understanding our own individual journey to where we currently are and what we currently believe, so we can meet that part of us on a level where it can accept new truths. However, there are as many different ways to do this as there are people currently on that journey. So you probably won't hear me knocking breathing exercises anymore, because for at least one person I know, that was an important part of their journey of understanding. It was a vital step towards rebuilding their faith in themselves and their own responses. But be aware that her journey went beyond simply managing her symptoms with some breathing exercises. Once she got control of her physical responses, she used that knowledge to realize that any fear would now be misplaced, because there was no longer any potential threat. Updating our understanding of anxiety, realizing it's a vital emotional response rather than a mental malfunction, is what needs to happen so that we no longer have to in some way manage those extreme physical symptoms. But how we get there, that's our own personal journey of understanding, our path towards changing our beliefs so that we reach the point where we no longer feel under threat and no longer feel anxious about anxiety. Guys, I hope this video has been of value. If you have any questions, then please put them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer all of them. Please hit that thumbs up button if you like what I do, and why not subscribe to the channel for weekly mind management tips and anxiety advice. But that's it for now. I'm Tim Box, Mind Coach. Always remember to be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.